Okay, it's 7:30. Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Here.
Mr. DeLumo, Mr. Malta, Mr. Manel,
Here.
Mr. Good, Mr. Van Wagner,
Here.
Mr. Worrell,
Here.
Mrs. Beal,
Here.
Mr. Mamie,
Here.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
Here.
Chairman Shepica.
Here. I won't ask you to stand, but I will. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The notice requirements for the open public meeting law for this meeting were satisfied, a copy having been sent to the Asbury Park Press,
Except for
and the coaster and the office of Township Clerk, July 27, 2020. Mr. Malta is here. Please mark him present.
Okay.
No new cases will be started after 10 p.m. and no new testimony will be taken after 10:30. In addition, applicants will be limited to 45 minutes of testimony. All meetings will be video and audio taped as shown on the Township of Ocean's Community Cable Channel 22, on Verizon Fios Channel 27, Cablevision. Okay, I'm going to read a statement and then, Mark, how do I read the statement and then we're going to vote it in?
Yeah, you need to read the statement. We're going to adopt this as our procedure henceforth, if you offer it. So,
Purely procedural.
yes.
It is the board's policy to adhere to the following procedure. After testimony by the applicant's attorney, their professional or preferred witness, questions will follow by members of the zoning board for that particular witness. After the member of the zoning board asks their questions, the zoning board professionals shall have the opportunity to ask questions. These questions by the members of the board and professionals directed to the applicant's witness may overlap. After the board members and board professionals have finished their questions, the chairperson of the zoning board shall open the public portion session of the meeting for the public to ask questions only of the witness currently testifying. This is not the time for public comment or opinion. Each member of the public who wishes to question the witness must make themselves known by either raising their virtual hand or physical hand if you are participating with video. Please wait to be called upon by the chairperson before speaking. Each individual of the public must state their name, spell their last name, state their address for the record, and will have one 5-minute session to question the applicant's witness currently under oath. All questions should be directed to the witness regarding his or her testimony. Only and questions should not be repeated. Time is not transferable between members of the public. The public should be aware that public question sessions will be held upon the conclusion of each individual witness for the applicant. Once the applicant, witness, or any other witness has finished testifying, they're not subject to recall by the public, but may take the stand again as part of the applicant's hearing process. Every witness who appears may be subject to board member. Let me read that again. Every witness who appears may be subject to board member, board professionals, and public question. The board and its professionals, however, are not subject to questioning. At the completion of the applicant's case, when the applicant has finished with all their witnesses and evidence presentation, the chairperson of the zoning board will open the floor for public comment. At this time, individuals from the public will be sworn in, given their name and address for the record, and will have one 5-minute session to provide comment or opinion on the application as a whole. This is time when the public may express the board their opinions about the application subject to a vote. Time is not transferable between members of the public. At the conclusion of the session for comments, the applicant or their attorney may provide a summation or closing statement to the board. After summation, the board and professionals may engage in a discussion on the record regarding the application and its comments. There will be no further input from the public or the applicant at this time. Upon conclusion of the discussion, the board may make a motion with regard to the application and vote upon the same. We ask that both the applicant and the member of the public be respectful to the process as outlined above.
Okay, Henry, I need to make one change, which is the second line should read, after the members of the zoning board ask their questions, the zoning board professionals shall have the opportunity to enter their respective reports and ask questions.
Okay, noted.
Thank you.
I need a board member. We have to vote on this, so I need,
Worrell offers to adopt this statement for this meeting and every meeting going forward.
Ben Wagner seconds.
Amy, please call the roll. Amy?
Mr. Fuller? Oh, you're off.
Amy is
You
muted.
have to
You're muted.
unmute yourself.
You're the one
I'm
that's here.
sorry. Mr. Malta?
Mr. Fuller is muted.
Manel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Worrell?
Yes.
I don't know if you called me, sorry. I think I have a little delay, but yes.
Mr. Mamie?
Here.
So I didn't hear all of that. I don't know if you called me or
I
not.
called you, Russ. Did you call me, Amy?
So yes.
Not yet. Mr. Ashkenazi?
Yes.
Chairman Jessica?
Yes. I carried. Thank you. Okay, could I ask everyone to just mute for a little while I read the rest of this, and then I'll get back to you?
Amy, just mute everyone.
Henry has to unmute himself.
Henry, we need you to unmute yourself, please. Everyone else has been muted.
Okay, Mark, I need Mark Steinberg.
Mark would need to unmute himself also.
Mark. Mark, there you are. Mark, I have to do resolutions. Are these all Cs? Can I read them all at once?
All the Cs that we voted on last week, yes, all the same people would vote on those. Correct.
Okay. Okay, so I'm going to read if anyone would like to read these in full, they are on the internet. I'm going to offer them as one. Starting with 485 South Edgemere Drive LLC, Block 76, Lot 5, 485 South Edgemere, West Allenhurst, bulk variance approval. 335 Roosevelt Avenue LLC, Block 19, Lot 3, 335 Roosevelt Avenue, Ocean, bulk variance approval. AEI Holdings LLC, Block 204, Lot 4, 1400 Highway 35, Ocean, bulk variance approval. Whoop. There's a D variance there, Mark.
That's right.
Which one?
AEI.
This is only for resolution purposes. So
Okay,
you can read them as long as all the same members are voting that voted on these, that are here tonight that voted on these, you can read them all together. Again, we only need one person to memorialize a resolution, whether it be C or D.
okay. D variance approval, site approval. Frederick Mutz, block 116, lot 1, 1801 Sunset Avenue, Wanamassa, bulk variance approval. Susan Plant, block 131, lot 14, 1325 Vina Avenue, Wanamassa, bulk variance approval. Carol Doyle, block 122, lot 7, 18 Wanamassa Point Road, Wanamassa, bulk variance approval. Someone please offer.
Worrell offers.
I need a second.
Fuller second.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Where's Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Good.
someone was muted, so
Is my mic coming through?
Yes.
now.
Amy, is that it? You got 3.
Maybe
I think
I
everyone's
think I
still
might have
muted,
lag,
so
so I'm sorry if I'm with you, but yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes, sorry.
Mr. Mamie, Mr. Ashkenazi, Chairman Shepherd.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, case is carried to February 18th, 2021. Morris Dweck, block 43, lot 1.2, 300 Parker Avenue, Deal Park. Gabby Shama, block 60, lot 45, 3 Millwyn Court, Ocean. William Larkin, block 25.07, lot 12, 190 Belmar Avenue, Oakhurst. 2112 Highway 35 Associates LLC, block 3, lot 678, 2112 Highway 35 Ocean. Michael Klein and Patricia Cronum, block 72, lot 1, Stafford Street, Ocean. Stephanie Roussel, block 22, lot 61, 322 Elbron Boulevard, Oakhurst. Nathan Mann, block 204, lot 4, 1400 Highway 35 Ocean. Morris and Marcy Tibble, block 17, lot 29, 225 Lewis Street, Ocean. Seaview Corporate Park Limited, block 149, lot 1, lot 1.01, 2603 Route 66. David Mizrahi, block 12.05, lot 14, 269 Lawrence Avenue, Ocean. Andrew and Darlene Childs, block 124, lot 3, 1304 Sunset Avenue, Wanamassa. Continued cases. This brings us to our first case. Michael and Kathleen Nair, block 33.01, lot 1, 536 Apple Drive, Oakhurst, Zone R4. This is an application to construct a 6-foot fence in a front yard along Pear Street, a 5-foot solid vinyl fence with 1-inch high lattice top, 10 foot from the curb. A variance is required for maximum fence height. Amy, the packet was already marked, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so, Mr. Higgins, do you have something on this again? Unmute yourself, please. Unmute yourself.
He's listening. Okay, go.
Mr. Higgins, please unmute yourself.
There we
Okay,
go.
there we go.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. When we left it last week, we were trying to determine the best location for the fence based on the width of the road and the width of the right of way. And after looking at it, the report, my recommendation in the report is that the fence be located 11 feet from the curb line, which would be 3.5 feet from the property line, leaving enough room between the fence and the property line for plantings. And after looking at it, Bill and I both agreed that that would be the best location.
Hey, did you just say 11 feet from the curb line, 3.5 from the property line?
That's correct.
Okay.
And that there be some landscaping, preferably deer-resistant landscaping, put within that 3.5 foot area.
Okay.
And would that be subject to you reviewing an informal landscape plan?
Yes, that would make sense.
And that would have to be installed
Probably,
June 15th?
well, yeah, assuming they put the fence up that quickly, yes.
Okay, so within 90 days of the fence installation,
That makes sense.
90 days. Okay, depending upon it is. Okay.
Okay, Mr. and Mrs. Nair, are you here?
Yes,
Yes.
Okay, do you agree with this?
I'm sure. That's fine.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
That's what we're looking for.
Okay, so that you'll have to get in touch with Mr. Higgins and submit an informal plan for your landscaping, okay?
Okay.
Yeah, she can submit the plan to Amy, and then Amy will get it to me.
Okay, great.
Perfect. Okay, does anyone from the board have any more questions on this case?
Right, was this the fence, if I recall, that it's going to be 6 feet, but the top 1 foot is lattice?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's 5 feet plus 1 foot, sort of decorative lattice to
Yeah.
Correct.
minimize the impact.
Right.
You got it. And the material is going to be
A white vinyl fence.
white vinyl. Okay. Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Does anyone from the board have any questions on this? Anyone from the public have any questions on this? Amy, please, I'd like to close the public hearing.
Make a
Amy, please
motion
call the
to close
roll.
the public hearing.
I need a second.
Second.
Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes,
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi,
I know he's here.
I don't hear him. Chairman Shepherd,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, we're good. I need a action on this.
I offer for a positive resolution, providing we get an architectural over to Mr. Higgins to review before everything's granted.
I need a second. Amy, please call the roll.
Do you mean architectural or an informal planting plan?
Sorry, not architectural, landscape.
Yeah, got it. Okay.
Who seconds?
Fuller.
Okay. Mr. Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi, Chairman Shepherd.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much,
Thank
Mr. and
you
Mrs.
very much.
Nair.
Yeah, thank you.
That brings us to case number 2, Hillel School, Block 34.03, Lot 2, 2.01, 5.01, 5.02, and 6, 125 Deal Road, Ocean, Lot 3. This is an application to construct an early learning center building, high school building, relocation and construction of a firehouse building with associated amenities with necessary variance and waivers required. Okay, so I'm going to read this first. Minimum rear yard setback 40, proposed 15, minimum lot depth 400, proposed 125, parking spaces 28, 18, parking spaces Hillel 2,036, proposed 224, parking spaces 2169, proposed 346, maximum of consecutive parking spaces without an island 20, proposed 24. Minimum landscaping area along the front of property line, public street along Poplar 25 wide, 0 offered. Minimum landscape area along side rear property line, streets along Poplar 10-foot wide, offered 0. Among other variances related to driveway, landscaping, lighting, signature, attorney for the applicant, Jennifer Krimko. Jennifer, are you there?
Good evening, Mr. Shepherd.
Jennifer, we're going to do things a little different tonight. We're going to let you give us an overview of what is going to go on. We're not going to, Amy, please mark the packet though. We're going to let you give us an overview, and we're not going to read Mr. Higgins or Mr. Fitzgerald's points in right now. And I'd hope that you wouldn't ask any of your professionals. I'd like you to take your 45 minutes and tell us what you're going to do. And then we're going to come back after you've explained that to us, and then we can have a more clear decision. How about that?
I think that works. If I could just not correct a couple things. And first, let me just say Jennifer Krimko from the law firm of Van Til Grimm and Aaron here on behalf of the applicant.
Yes.
While I agree with that procedure almost entirely, in order for me to properly tell you what we're proposing, my engineer will have to testify, but not as to the technical aspects of the application, but as to the overall layout. And he would be doing that through aerials and color rendered site plans. And I think I heard, unless I was mistaken, in your new procedure anyway, Bill and Jim no longer read their letters in at the beginning. They insert them after the applicant goes anyway. I think that was
not necessarily true. If it's something that's real simple, that'll take 2 minutes, I'll let them read it. But
okay.
at this point in time, this is pretty technical and a little
Right.
different. So we want you to present first. But remember, you have 45 minutes, and then we're going to come back and do it again.
Okay, and that's understood. And before I get started, I just want to give a 30,000-foot overview. First, as everyone's familiar with this site, it's the corner of Deal Road and Poplar Road, and it currently contains the campus of the Hillel School. It has existed in that site since it was constructed after the 1978 approval. That was the first approval when Hillel first occupied a portion of this property. Also on that site is what is the former Copper Gables office building and the firehouse. You're going to hear through the testimony tonight how the school has organically grown and the property has developed. You did read a long list of variances at the beginning of the hearing. What's important to note is that almost every one of those are pre-existing non-conforming and are not necessarily being made worse as part of this application. So what that means is that we're not creating new variances. We're basically continuing the existing ones. Some will be new, and you'll hear the testimony as it relates to those. Additionally, while the parking number, we're not going to get into the parking today. I don't think we're going to have time in the 45 minutes, but while the parking number deficit seems to be very high, what's important to note, and what I think more importantly for the public to note is that the ratio of parking spaces per gross square foot of building is actually improving over what exists today. It's improving over what this board approved back in 1996, and it's improving over what the board approved in 2011. So I ask the board and the members of the public to wait until they hear the entirety of the application before passing any judgment as to the extent of the relief needed, because most of it is existing, and in some cases we're making it better. With all of that said, and with a lot of misinformation swirling about, I think it's important to outline who I'm going to have here to testify. Who we get to ultimately, we'll see how the 45 minutes goes, but to start, it's going to be Darren Shabbat. Darren Shabbat, as you'll hear, is a board of directors member at the Hillel School and chairman of Building and Grounds. He's going to give an overview of why we're here tonight and what the school's needs are and what we're proposing. Additionally, I have Craig Flanagan here. Craig Flanagan is with Fire District Number 1. As part of our application, we are swapping property with the fire department and constructing them a new firehouse, state-of-the-art firehouse. Additionally, we are enabling them to move their emergency, the EMT services over to this more centralized location. So I wanted to have him testify as to the benefits that the fire department and the public will get as a result of this application. I have Matt Sharrow. He's a licensed engineer and professional planner. He will obviously tonight go over the layout and what we're proposing on a high level. And when we have the opportunity, hopefully at a special meeting, he will then go through all of the technical aspects of it. We have the architect, Tom McHugh. He can go over the buildings that are proposed, how they relate to the existing buildings. And we have Justin Taylor, who is a traffic engineer, who will be preparing an updated traffic report to reflect the plans as they currently exist. We do not yet have the high school floor plans or elevations submitted to the board. Between now and the next meeting, we will. And then that will enable the traffic engineer to update his report to reflect what is now going to be that build out. So if it's okay with you, Mr. Chair, the members of the board, I'd like to start with Darren Shabbat, have him sworn, and I don't see him yet.
I'm here.
So there he is. I know, you know what, it's like playing Hollywood Squares. It's hard to find somebody because everybody's looking around. So if I could have Darren sworn.
Mr. Shabbat, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
I do.
Please state your name, address, and tell us what you're here for.
My name is Darren Shabbat. I live at 306 Crimson Circle in Oakhurst. And I'm here to give you an overview of what we are looking to achieve at Hillel.
Okay, so Darren.
Well, wait a minute. What Mr. Shabbat is what does he, is he part of the?
Yeah, he was going.
So I'm going to read you my my whole thing.
I was just going to offer that, Mr. Shabbat. But Darren, before you start that, I had indicated in the beginning that you're on the Hillel Board of Directors and you're the chairman of the Buildings and Grounds Committee. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So we're submitting him in that capacity, Mr. Shabbat.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so Darren, I'm going to turn it over to you because I know that you carefully thought out what you would like to share with the board and the public. So I'm going to turn it over to you and allow you to share your thoughts with them.
Thank you. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, everybody. Good evening, all, and thank you for having me. My name is Darren Shabbat, and I have served on the Hillel School Board of Directors for over 15 years as chairman of Buildings and Grounds. During this time, I have had the privilege to oversee many improvements at our campus, including an outdoor and indoor playground, our crown jewel Founders Hall, and more recently, the extensive restoration of 3 of our school wings: elementary, early learning center, and our core building. Our 4th renovation, our existing high school, will begin this May. A little about myself. I was born and raised in Brooklyn, New York, but summered at the Jersey Shore since birth. I was a 10-year camper at Oakhurst Country Day Camp, and my love for the Jersey Shore grew from there. My family and I have been year-round residents in the Oakhurst section of Ocean Township for 30 years, living on Crimson Circle for 27 years now. My 4 daughters all went through the Hillel school system and have grown to be responsible young adults with small families of their own now, including some grandchildren that attend Hillel. 2 of them actually work as assistant teachers at Hillel currently. Hillel has existed in Ocean Township since the 1950s on Logan Road, and its current location since 1978. The student body comes from the Sephardic Jewish community living in Oakhurst and Westfield sections of Ocean Township, West Long Branch, the southeast sections of Eatontown and Long Branch. Hillel School for many years has had an enrollment that ebbed and flowed, and the various approvals we have obtained over the years to expand our campus was always able to accommodate our student body. Recently, the school purchased the Copper Gables property on the corner, which is not adjacent to the main campus. As everyone is aware, the Fire District Firehouse was in between. It was at a technical review meeting on the Founders Construction back in 2011 that the board's engineer came up with the brilliant idea for us to purchase and swap properties with the fire district so our campus could be contiguous and the fire district would have a prominent location with access to both Deal Road and Poplar Road, plus a brand new state-of-the-art firehouse. Since purchasing the Copper Gables property, we have worked closely with Fire District to propose the current development to meet all of their needs. We are now ready to make that vision from 2011 a reality. This time, because of young families that are growing and inherently want to stay in this area, we are looking to plan ahead for the future. With our existing campus's limited capacity, our classroom sizes have been increasing, more students per class, and we have been forced to utilize common areas for classroom settings instead. Also, since the COVID pandemic hit in 2019, more families are opting to live in New Jersey year-round. Additionally, we have had a serious need for outdoor sports recreation to house our school teams' practices. We are not seeking new enrollment, nor are we encouraging it. Rather, this is a long-term plan to better accommodate our existing students while planning ahead for the future needs of our younger school population. The LC Younger Elementary program is busting at seams. We need to be able to provide ample space for their high school education in the future. Our new plan proposes an annex to the existing preschool to meet the needs of the young families with small children. We also propose a relocated high school currently within the campus to be built 5 to 10 years from now. We also propose new outdoor sports courts and, of course, a relocated and much-needed brand new firehouse for the Ocean Township Fire Department. In essence, 2 existing and old and outdated buildings will become 3 new modern facilities. Moreover, we are eliminating a 10,000 square foot office building, which, as you will hear from the traffic expert, is a big benefit to traffic on Deal Road. The new state-of-the-art firehouse will also be situated in an even better position to serve the local Ocean Township community. The preschool annex would include 12 classrooms, a multi-purpose room, offices, and bathrooms. Again, this would help address the immediate growth of our young families. The proposed new high school would include a gymnasium, a student lounge, a multi-purpose room, 16 classrooms, offices, and bathrooms. Although a comfortable learning environment is paramount, some of the most significant proposed improvements include an additional 114 new parking spaces for a total of 328 spaces, a much larger 3-lane bus circle, much improved traffic flow throughout the campus, dedicated turn lanes heading back to Poplar Road, a new secured main entrance lobby, a covered walkway for inclement weather, a cover to the existing outdoor basketball court, and overall landscape beautification. We have several professionals who will testify, provide you with the technical details of what we are proposing, but I wanted to give you the background and an overview. I remain available for any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Krimko.
Okay, so the reason we're putting Mr. Shabbat forward was to explain why we're coming before you, not to go over the technical details as it relates to the application. One of the things that we asked for in our application was with regard to an elimination of the condition as to the number of students that are there. By deed restriction that originated in a 1996 approval, there was a limitation to, I think it was 1,000 students permitted at the school. And as you heard the testimony from Mr. Shabbat, well, there is no influx necessarily or mass exodus to New Jersey. The school is starting to expand from the ground up, meaning that the younger population is growing, and they anticipate that in the near future, 5 to 10 years from now, not only will they need a new, bigger high school, but they're going to need the ability to provide for more than 1,000 students. While we'll have the witnesses to testify as to our ability to host that number of students based on the buildings and the traffic testimony as to the impact that there would be. Obviously, Mr. Shabbat, is that an accurate representation of your testimony up to this point? And is that what we're looking to do here? I don't know. You don't look like you're on mute, Darren, but I can't hear you.
You hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now. Nope, you just went
You
out
hear me
again.
okay?
You're going in
that
and
was a
out,
yes.
Darren.
That was accurate.
Okay, so from a realistic
That was a yes.
perspective and, okay, from
Dan, do
a
you have
realistic,
You want to eliminate that deed restriction. Do you have another number, or you want to leave it open?
Mark, you're, well, I'm going to my next question.
Okay.
That's exactly where I'm going.
Okay,
So,
thank you.
Darren, obviously, we have an understanding as to, based on the buildings and the sizes of the buildings and what we're proposing and the staff, and an understanding as to what the school can accommodate and more realistically, what the needs are. So what is the number that the school is looking for?
Through many discussions and calculations of the growth and where we are today, we believe that 1,600 is a number that would take us well into the future. That would be, worker all the grades where we have most of the growth in the younger grades. But again, as I mentioned, a high school 5 to 10 years, as those children will grow and start giving us the need for that space.
Okay, so understanding, so the buildings that we're proposing, that's really what they would accommodate. And then ultimately, should you outgrow that, then the school's going to have to think about either acquiring more land or moving to a different location or having a satellite location somewhere else. So
That yes, I would agree with that concept.
Can I ask you how many students are there now?
A question for me?
yeah,
Yes, sir.
Currently, we have a little bit over 1,000. I think the exact number is 1,118.
okay, and Mr. Shepherd,
Oh.
you got to my point before I did. Well, Darren, did that number go over 1,000 in enrollment prior to COVID, or is that as a result of a lot of families that typically live year-round in Brooklyn have chosen to spend the year here until they wait out the pandemic?
That is correct. Pre-COVID, we had a number of about 920, and that has increased as a result. Not just COVID, we do have inherently families growing here for the last few years now before COVID. But before COVID, the number was 920 or 928, and now we're at, I believe it's 1118.
Couple additional questions to that. First, there was no intention to violate the current restriction. This was a result of a pandemic and families moving here and the need to provide education to the children.
Absolutely.
Okay, and that was part and parcel what brought us to the board. Secondly, based on what's the typical attendance or absentee rate? Meaning the limitation was on 1,000 students at the school. Do you ever have more than 1,000 students at the school? What's your relative attendance rating?
Yes. I'm glad you asked that. So although the enrollment is 1118, we have a 10 to 15% absentee rate. Seems with or without COVID, about 10% at least. And the typical day would bring us about 950 students currently.
So while the enrollment may be a little bit higher, we're not violating the regulation in that there's never more than 1,000 students in school.
Technically, we are not.
Okay, but again, we don't know what the future is going to bring, if the families are going to stay here year round or go back to Brooklyn. So we're not seeking this addition for purposes to address the pandemic. It's just based on the anticipated growth of the younger families needing the higher education.
Yes, the fact is, it's the families that are here that are growing.
And when I say higher education, I don't mean
to see the need, as I've read.
Okay, and when I say higher education, I just mean higher grades K through 12. I don't mean higher education above that. Did that answer your question, Mr. Shepherd?
Yes.
Yes, this is from grades K through 12, correct?
Right, and what you missed, and I didn't want to interrupt his flow because I know Darren might have been a little bit nervous. He had mentioned the ELC. What does that stand for, Darren?
Early Learning Center.
Okay, and the 1100, and that's nursery school, so that's pre-K, nursery, pre-nursery, right?
Correct.
Okay. And when we gave the number of total students, that includes the ELC. That's everybody.
Yes, it does. Yes, total.
So just because he cut out a little, Mr. Shepherd, that was the total number of students includes from pre-nursery all the way up to senior year or 12th grade.
I got that. It's good. Very good.
Are there any other questions from the board?
That is correct.
Sorry, Henry, I have a question if you don't mind.
Mr. Van Wagen.
Yeah, so, and I'm sorry, Jennifer, I didn't get this. So this is like an overview. I mean, I haven't seen any engineering of the site, or I'm not really sure. You've talked
So
about.
Richard, yeah.
I'm
So
just gonna-
yes, so that.
Well, I was going to ask, all right, go ahead.
So what we wanted to do, the engineer going over the overview of the site isn't going to make sense to you until you understand the school and the school's needs. So again, we're just giving an overview right now of.
No, I understand. Yeah, without the engineer, but so this is going to be a massive reconstruction of the site, right?
No, it's not a massive reconstruction site. It's the construction of 3 buildings.
So I don't know, right? So I know that we've had, we approved the building there that I think was beautiful, that even though it's up close to Poplar Road there, as you go down and see it on the left, I know it had some administration purposes and some other things, and I think it's really well constructed. The density there we've done. I just want, like, the ownership there it's like is Poplar, the office part separate from Hillel's ownership?
No, so Richard, Richard, if I could just ask you to hold those questions until we get through
Yeah, I'm
this.
not
I mean,
sure I want
I
to do that because I'm trying
Okay.
to understand why you have a site,
Let me-
like the administrator of the site on a massive reconstruction of this site being our main testifier, but okay.
okay. So let me do this. Amy, can I share my screen? Or Ron, could you make it so I can share my screen? And we did provide the plans, Mr. Van Wagner, but I do have a color rendered aerial to make it clear. And as was testified, as I offered in my overview, and as was testified, by Darren, we own the Copper Gables building right now.
Are they two separate
it's all-
sites?
Again, can everybody see my screen?
I can now.
Yes.
Okay, so I'd like to move this in as A1. It's an aerial map overlay. And Darren, can you see this?
Yes.
Okay, no, Darren.
Yes, I
you
can.
see it? Okay, so Darren, I want to walk,
Yes.
I want to walk through this with you. I know that we intended to do this with the engineer when he came, but let's take a moment and do this together. So this is an aerial photograph that the engineer will testify as to where it came from, overlaid with a color rendering of our site plan. So Darren, I'm just going to walk through the buildings and ask you some questions, okay? Where my
Yes.
cursor is now, that property is owned by the school, but is leased to the Congregation Sons of Israel, and that's where the synagogue is, correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And then as I head to the west, this here is the current looping for the bus and the parking for the school. And this is additional parking and garbage and a baseball field, right?
Correct.
Okay. And this, where my cursor is where the high school is currently?
That is the middle school.
I'm sorry, the middle school. And then as I head to the north, this is what you call the core building. And this has common area spaces and now the overflow classrooms that are no longer fitting in the other areas.
That is correct. That building, which was the most recently renovated, has a gymnasium, a cafeteria, classrooms, and some bathrooms.
Okay. As I head to the north, that's what you talked about, the Founders Hall that got approval back in 2011?
Yes, it is. That is the Founders Hall and Auditorium.
Okay, and as I head to the west here, this is the current elementary school.
That is correct.
Okay, and heading west there, right where my cursor is now, there's an existing outdoor basketball court that you're proposing to enclose.
That is correct.
Okay. So, so all of this is existing, and currently Poplar Place is a public right-of-way, but the only users of Poplar Place are those users around that are owned by the school and the fire department, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and as A2 in evidence, if I could, is an aerial map exhibit. And I probably should have started with this, and I'm sorry that I didn't.
Apologize, Jen, I didn't mean to interrupt, but that's not actually accurate. I mean, they don't, Poplar Place, does that come off of Poplar Boulevard?
Poplar
Comes off
Road.
of Poplar Road, yes.
Yeah, because it's not accurate. The entire school uses it, maybe the back part that they access for the firehouse, but that, I mean, not the firehouse, but Poplar Village there, which is the
No,
office.
it doesn't go through. Again, Richard.
I understand, but when you said the only place,
This is Jim Higgins. Rich, can I interject just a second? Because
I'll stop.
there's a minor discrepancy on these aerials on both the prior plan that was shown and this one. This application proposes to vacate Poplar Place in its entirety and make it part of the overall Hillel site. And that was a suggestion.
We don't see it, but we don't have any of that, Jim. We haven't been.
Yes,
I know you haven't. I know you haven't.
No, we haven't. We haven't got nothing, Jim.
No.
So, again, if I may, this aerial is what it looks like today. Poplar Place is a public right-of-way, and it only services the firehouse, and the lots owned by the school. But going back, Darren, this is the current firehouse, correct?
That is correct.
Okay, and then on the corner here is the Copper Gables property, and there's a vacant lot as different lot designation, and this is what's also owned by the school.
That is correct.
Okay, and as part of our proposal, going back to the overlay, and it's written on here, you just can't see it. Part of the proposal, which actually developed from discussions with the board's professionals during technical review, was to seek from the council to vacate Poplar Place and make it part of the school campus. And the reason for that is solely for security. Is that your understanding?
Yes, it is.
Okay. By doing that, it would, first of all, the school would have to maintain it, but it would allow you to put a gate if necessary at the entrance to the school to protect the school campus, right?
Yes.
Okay. And as part of the application, we have a minor subdivision, which is basically serving to create this corner lot. And on the corner lot, and again, I'm not going to have the representative from the school talk about this, but just to clarify for your edification, Mr. Van Wagner, this corner lot is the lot that we're proposing to have owned by the fire district and where the firehouse would be constructed, right?
Right on the corner of Deal, Roller, and Poplar.
Well, it's actually just on the corner of Deal and Poplar.
Well, Deal, Roller, and
Not on-
Poplar. That corner right there, that three-way
Yes.
intersection. Right,
Yes.
so it's that.
So, yes, this is the firehouse. And then going back, when I talked about constructing 3 buildings, Darren, the firehouse is 1, and this building is proposed to be the new high school.
Correct.
Okay, and then this building
That is
is
correct.
proposed to be annexed to the Early Learning Center, right?
That is correct.
Okay, and then lastly, this large parking lot with bus queuing lanes here, and then tennis courts and a basketball court. Is that the sum of the development as an overview?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Okay. So without going in, and Mr. Van Wagner, all of these plans are on file. The only element that may not be part of the plans on file is the vacation of Poplar Road, but I believe it is. But again, we have to wait for the engineer for that. But I believe all of this is on file and
Well,
has.
it may be on file for the public, but I am a member of the zoning board. We're presented with our packages, and I don't have any engineering unless I missed it. So this is the first I've seen it.
Mr. Van
Okay,
Wagner.
well, I wasn't aware
Ms.
of that,
Ms.
Mr. Van
Ms.
Wagner.
Krimko, Ms. Krimko.
Yeah.
1 second. Mr. Van Wagner, my intention here tonight was to have Jennifer, Ms. Krimko, come here and give us an overview without too much engineering, without too many professionals, and without our professionals to start this case, because there are a lot of things going on here, and we want to make sure that we have an overview of the board first, and for the public also. And then next month, we can go through engineering and our professionals, Mr. Higgins and Mr. Fitzgerald, and everything else. What I wanted to do is get kind of a flavor to this before we really delve into it.
Understood, and I appreciate that. But I'll tell you, my flavor is, you got to be kidding me right now. That's a corner that, if you're pulling everything right to that corner, like you're saying, with this overview, I'm not seeing it.
Well, Mr. Van Wagner, as an attorney, I'm sure that you know that you're not going to pass an opinion on.
No, but you're putting an overview before any engineering, before any professionals, before anything else. So I'm free to give my overview too.
Respectfully, I'd suggest that you don't. You wait to hear the testimony
But
from
you didn't present
everybody.
it that way. You presented it as an overview of a plan, and I don't see any engineering. I mean, I will be so open-minded. I just hope that
Richard,
that works out for everybody.
we submitted everything. what you get is not within my control, okay? So it's all been on file. I didn't know you didn't have it. The engineer is here. The only reason for presenting Mr. Shabbat and Mr. Flanagan is so you understand how we got here. If we could get through the testimony, I'm going to introduce Matt Sharrow, and he's going to go through all of these plans with you.
I didn't know, okay, you said an
I
overview.
announced that at the beginning of the hearing.
I'll
I
let
have
Henry.
the engineer. My intention is for him to go over all of these exhibits with you, but I'm putting it into context as to why there was a land swap and what the school's needs are for the future. Because,
Correct.
I didn't know
that's it.
about a land swap.
well, I
Uh,
believe
I-
I believe I said it, and I believe Mr. Shepherd said it. But again,
I mean,
I'm
I
just
didn't hear
trying
it.
to get, I'm just trying to get through the context of why we're here. So, Ms. Johnson, thank you for your comments. Everybody can see them. I'm just trying to get through the context of why we're here and what the school's needs are, because Matt Sharrow can't answer those questions. And if he got up and said, we're here to put additions to the building, I can bet that you and Mr. Shepherd and everyone else would say, well, why do you need extra space? So all I'm doing is laying the foundation for the engineer's testimony.
No, I understand, but I mean, you're talking about relocating an entire firehouse and re-engineering the whole site. But in an overview. Like,
Okay,
But we
hold on. Everyone, please, for 1 second. This is meant to be an overview only, okay? The packages were not sent out in that way because it's simply a historical reference and a presentation by the applicant's attorney. When we come to this again, which we certainly will, you will have all of the engineer's reports, we were just trying to save time by allowing Ms. Krimko to present this portion that would have to be heard one way or another. No voting would be taking place no matter what on this property. And that's why we are where we are.
Correct.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Shabbat?
Yes, I have one, Worrell. So on the overview, my understanding is, without having any plans in front of me, will the Copper Gables building be razored and removed in order to make way for the new firehouse?
Yes, it would. Well, it would be ultimately with this plan, yes.
Thank you.
The high school that's there now, it will be completely, you're not going to demolish that building. That building stays. So what will that building house?
The intent is that it will eventually turn into our middle school.
Okay,
As the other grades push out, they'll push out into the existing or current middle school. And then at that time, when the high school would be developed, then we would move those students to the new building, and the middle school would take up the current high school.
okay. And the early learning center is from K to what? K to 5?
Early Learning Center is nursery to kindergarten. Elementary is 1 to 5, and then the middle school is 6, 7, and 8.
Okay.
Can I ask for a point of clarification? And maybe either Ms. Krimko or Mr. Shapat can answer that. The 1,600 figure enrollment that Ms. Krimko mentioned, does that include the Early Learning Center?
Yes, all the numbers tonight, the 1118 and the proposed or future number are inclusive of all grades from top to bottom.
Okay.
So effectively, we're talking about an addition of about 500 students, Darren?
That would be correct.
And if I may ask one question, that's over a period of projected years, correct?
Yes.
Absolutely. As mentioned, for the high school, 5 to 10 years, but it's a long-term plan, certainly.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
I don't want to get into enclosures of basketball courts or anything like that tonight. I do want to ask one question, and I don't know how it relates to this, and maybe Mark can help me out here. But there's also a summer camp that has gone on there for years. Is that a continuation? Is that an abbreviation? What's going to happen there?
Well, I can answer that, Mr. Shepherd. Having gone over all the resolutions over the years, this board approved the summer camp conditionally for a year at a time, and they returned year after year to either extend it and or increase the number of students. I believe that the last approval relative to the summer camp was in November 14th, 2013, and it allowed for a permanent summer camp with a max of 550 campers.
Okay.
So we're not
so that-
proposing to change. We're not proposing to change it. If the summer camp decided that they wanted to change, they would be required to come back to the board and seek their own change. This application is not having any impact on that.
And the temporary swimming pools that are put up are still, there's that room, that area does not change, correct?
Darren?
That is correct. Yes, that is correct. Those areas are not disturbed and would continue to have the pools.
Okay.
And the approvals also allow or require that the summer camp not be in session when the school is in session.
I
So you would
remember
have
that. I remember that we made a
100 plus 500.
Yeah.
That's,
The
that
only thing
that
we
is
may,
correct.
we need
Yes.
to discuss and modify possibly, because I would assume the Early Learning Center is a 12-month operation. Is that correct?
No,
That's
not correct. That is incorrect. It only runs with the school year.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. So,
And just additionally, this, for our needs to get the school ready and so on, we look for at least a week to 10 days between the beginning of camp, beginning of school, to have nobody at the school so we can do our work to prepare the space.
so that when the 550 campers are there, there are no students in any of the facilities, basically.
Now, unless they're campers that happen to go to Hillel, but not, there's no school activity and camp activity happening at the same time.
And that includes the Early Learning Center. That's fine. That.
Yes, it does. Includes the-
Yeah, and unless they come back, Henry, for addition, they have got the permanent 550, and things change, they can come back for more if they so seek it. At this point, that's a restriction that's going to be.
Understood. I remember when we did that.
Yeah, but
Not a
it
problem.
seems that really has no issue with this development.
Ms.
Any other
Krimberg,
questions?
do you have anything else?
Any other questions from the board, Mr. Shepherd? Because I did want to give the public the opportunity while Darren's here to open it up to the public.
Mr. Chairman, I'm wondering, will Mr. Shabab be available next month when we have the documents in front of us?
Yes.
Certainly, if the board requests he's here, I'm sure he's going to be here for every meeting, Mr. Fuller.
I want to make something clear to the board and the public. This is an overview tonight. That's why I did it this way. So I didn't want to get into the engineering and the finer points before we can have some kind of overview, and then next month come back and we could start with engineering and start with our professionals report. Right? Correct?
Yeah,
Mr. Clerk?
but Mr. Fuller, we will have Mr. Shabbat available to answer any questions once the board has heard all of the technical details.
Okay.
Can I just ask the public not to message or send questions or statements, because that's sort of like a testifying, because it's coming to everybody. So I don't know if there's a way to shut that off. I've seen some comments coming back and forth, which are obviously, everybody sees those comments.
Where are you seeing comments?
There's a chat, Mr. Shepherd, and from a, and thanks, Mark, for pointing that out. And I'd ask the board members to refrain from reading the chat because ultimately that's outside of the public meeting. It's not part of what's before you and it's not proper for you to consider it. So I'd ask if the board has the ability to shut the chat down. I know that there are privacy settings. That would be great, Ron. Because technically, I don't want to run afoul of the Open Public Meetings Act.
Okay, I do want to remind everyone that we are about 6 minutes away from the end of this for the 45 minutes.
Okay. Ms. Krimko, moving forward, I'd rather not have another witness if you have 6 minutes.
Well, what I'd like to do is if we could open Darren to the public while they're here and get that started. And I suppose I could have Mr. Flanagan return at the next meeting to talk about why the fire department wanted to be participating in this plan. Unless you'd like to hear from him now.
Mr. Flanagan, are you okay coming back next month?
He's shaking his head yes.
Yes, I am.
Okay, that's good. Are there any other questions from the board members? Okay, I have very few minutes for the public. So who would like to speak? Please raise your hand.
These are only questions on the testimony given by the witness,
Questions.
not comments, not positions.
Okay,
Are we open for public comment now?
No comments. If anybody has
no
a
comments.
question of the testimony,
We're open for public questions on the testimony.
correct.
Richard
Okay,
Torero, she has her hand up. I know that's not Richard. Please unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself.
I don't think they could hear you.
Okay. Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please
Yes.
state your name, spell your last name, and give us your address.
Okay. Nanette Terrio, T as in Thomas, E-R-E-O, 8 David Street, Ocean. I have a question as to the towns that the school students come to. I mean, the students, where are they coming from? Because obviously it's not in our actual area. So what towns are the school students coming from? I had
That is
heard,
incorrect.
Mr. Chavez.
As I read, and I would say most of the students come from Ocean Township and the West Deal section of Ocean Township. And then we do have from West Long Branch, the southeast section of Eatontown, and some from Long Branch.
And to
But,
some
the
extent,
majority,
could you
to some
give me the
extent, Mr. Shepherd,
percentage? I'd
I
like
just
to know
wanted
the
to
percentage of students that come from actually from Ocean Township versus the other students, the other towns.
I would have to give you an accurate percentage. I would have to look into that.
Mr.
Okay.
Chavez, can you please do that for next month?
Henry, can I make a
Absolutely.
comment?
Yes?
I mean, I've worked with the school in so many respects in terms of like youth sports and everything else. This is a community school. It's a wonderful school. I mean, it's without question. I mean, Hillel, and I mean, it's one of the best schools in our area, and lots of mostly kids from Ocean, and I know some of them, but I mean, I don't know the exact numbers, but I'd hate for the public to think that this is not a like you're like part of our community. So I'm gonna like watch the engineering designs that are presented, but I think that's what this is about. It's not about the existence of this school. This school's been here a while. So I just want to say that. Sorry.
Other questions?
That's it for now. Thank you.
Ms. Lambert. Please unmute yourself. Please speak.
Hey, how are you?
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Please raise your right hand.
David too. We're both going to ask the question.
You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, please state your names and addresses.
David Lambert,
And Marissa Lambert,
3 Kenneth Drive.
Ocean. We
Question
live
for,
diagonally across.
question for Mr. Shavit.
Yes, and for the Ms. Kremiko, because she mentioned
Krimko. Her name is
Krimko,
Krimko.
sorry, Krimko. She mentioned that it wasn't going to be a huge demolition, but it is our understanding that you're going to take away the level the entire area.
Well, just to address that, I didn't mention the word demolition. I believe that Mr. Van Wagner asked whether or not this was a huge reconstruction of it, and I said we're constructing 3 new buildings.
Right, and you also had said that that the spaces that are needed, the minimum spaces of 2,036 was not really much more than what you already used.
No, that isn't it. No, that isn't what I said. What I said was what we are proposing by way of parking ratio, meaning spaces per square footage of building, is an improvement over what this board approved in 1996 and approved again in 2011. But as I also indicated, I was giving a 30,000-foot view of what the application was. We are going to have a civil engineer testify to that, as well as a traffic engineer to testify to it. So again, that isn't a question for the witness. The witness didn't testify to that. That was part of my opening statement.
Okay, well then the witness, David, what do you want to say? The witness said.
The population, the enrollment of the school, that's 1,118 right now.
Yes.
Is that right?
Mr. Shavit?
Yes, the enrollment is at 11.
Is that over the limit for the enrollment of the school?
Is that?
The resolution just indicated there could be no more than 1,000 students. It wasn't clear that that was enrollment versus students at the school. As was testified by Mr. Shavit, while there's an 1,100 students there, there is no more than 1,000 at the school based on the percentage of absentee. Is that correct, Mr. Shavit?
Yes, it is.
And there's a limit of 1,600 students
That you're asking for?
for the future school?
They're asking for it, I think.
For growth in the future schools, yes.
And do you think that's realistic, or do you think that's going to be gone over? Do you think it would be, I mean, that's a 50% increase, and you're over 10% higher than the limit now. Do you think that it could easily exceed that? Because that's a lot of people.
Sure. I don't think it can easily exceed that because to get to the 1,600, we're looking at, I would say, 10 years. So, you know, it's not something that'll happen overnight. And we're not opening up any of these buildings when they would be finished and filling them up with new students. It's to expand as our population in the school grows.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that you
The
felt
1,600 will not, in my opinion, will. Go ahead.
Jennifer?
Yes.
Unfortunately, we've overreached our limit tonight. So we're gonna have to bring this back next month.
Is it possible to schedule a special meeting? I can tell just from the questions that arose tonight from the board members, let alone the public.
How
that
are you?
this is going You have someone who broke into the meeting.
Mute everyone but Jen, please.
Okay,
So I would ask if we could possibly either have a special meeting for February.
Well, the first thing we would have,
I'm getting interrupted, so.
Okay, Jennifer, here's what I suggest. Let's get back to Amy and Ron tomorrow with some dates, and let's figure that out. I can't do that at this point on the internet, but we can do it tomorrow if that's good with you.
Okay, so then I'd ask that we carry this to the board's next meeting without the need for further notice. If we get a date before then for a special, then I would have to send new notice. If we get a date after the special, I'm sorry, after the next meeting, then we could carry it without the need for further notice. So when's the next date that this would be?
by the way, that's correct procedure.
The next meeting is when? What is going on here?
Amy, you gotta
Someone
get off.
shared their screen.
No,
Who's
just don't try helping.
Somebody broke in, I have to get off. Somebody's.
Just leave it as is. Let's go back to the way it was.
I'm gonna get out because some looks like they're trying to take my screen over.
Yeah, I'm having a problem here. Where's Jennifer?
I'm right here.
Okay, so Jennifer, why don't you call Ron tomorrow and let's schedule something and send it out to the board?
That's fine. What's the next meeting, Mr. Chepiga, just so we could carry it without the further notice?
The next meeting is, I'm sorry, next meeting is February 18th. You can carry that without any further notice.
Okay, thank you. And then if we do a special before then, I would send out new notice.
Yes.
As a resident, I would object to any special meeting before notice.
What's that?
It only benefits attorneys, applicant, Crimco, and the developer.
Who's talking?
Peter Young, 610 Deal Road. I object to any special.
You cannot object.
You cannot object to
If
anything.
the applicant wants to buy and they have to pay extra for it, a special meeting, and have a hearing on that date and have the whole evening, we have a provision on ordinance which permits that.
Then go ahead and act in your role with that provision, but I just stated my view.
Okay.
Okay, fine.
Fine.
Jennifer will carry it to the next meeting without further public notice. If anything changes, you'll have to renote if it's not on for that date or past that date.
Excuse me, how will the public know when it's rescheduled for?
It is now rescheduled for the next meeting of February 18th, our usual third Thursday of the month at 7:30. It will be on that night and announced that night if it's carried to a different night, or if it turns out that she gets a meeting prior to that night, you'll all get new notice, certified mail, and in the local paper, and you can check the website, which we will update as soon as we have a new date.
It all sounds very legal and procedural, but we're uncomfortable with Jennifer calling Ron tomorrow to ask for a special date.
I'm sorry, we are permitted to do that under our ordinances and a standard operating procedure. The reason she has to call him is so that he can figure out several dates and find out if our members are available.
Jennifer has been very nice, to be very respectful to all of us. I would ask her respectfully then to not exercise that opportunity that she has under the law.
Thank you very much for your comments. This is concluded. We have to move on.
Mute them out.
We have to just carry the matter to the 18th of February without any further notice at this point.
Excuse me, I need a minute or two. I'll be right back.
Good evening, everyone.
Hello, Rob.
How you doing, Mark? Hi, board members, Jim, everybody.
Sorry, this brings us to case number 2, Bahar and Rebecca Salami, block 22, lot 44.02, 249 Overbrook Avenue, Oakhurst, zone R4. This is an application to construct an in-ground pool and patio within the floodplain with variances for maximum impervious coverage and building in a designated 100-year floodplain. Attorney for the applicant, Robert Farber.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Shepka, and everybody on the board.
Mr. Farber, 1 second. Amy, could you please mark the packet? Amy?
Having problems with the computer, but yes.
Okay. Mr. Farber.
Thank you, Mr. Shepka. As stated, I represent the Salamis, 249 Overbrook. It's block 22, lot 44.02. This is a series of bulk variances for a pool in a flood zone. It has been around for quite a while. The reason, not so much the bulk issues, which we'll get to shortly, but because of the location in the floodplain and numerous issues that have been addressed over more than a year, culminating in a report from Keith Staupfeld from the state of New Jersey DEP. This has been reviewed by our floodplain manager, who's the expert, one of the experts we'll have right now. And there have been there was a technical meeting with Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Lyman, who is the expert. I believe that William Jensen contributed to that and had participated. And I think things have been resolved somewhat to Mr. Fitzgerald's satisfaction. I think the way I would like to present this, with your permission, Mr. Chairman, is for Mr. Jensen, who's present, to describe generally the bulk issues, and then Mr. Lehman to talk about the flood issues. But I want to point something out. Years ago, I learned to go and walk the properties the day of the hearings, lest anything changes. Nothing has changed. But what's very unique about this property is that if you were walking in the backyard, on the southern side, there's a large building, a commercial building, and a parking lot. To the rear yard direct, which is the eastern side, there's a corrugated building, warehouse type building. It's partially covered by some shrubbery, but those exist on 2 of the contiguous lots. A third lot, there is a residential home. But since this is a pool, a lot of the bulk concerns pertain to interfering with the quiet enjoyment of property of neighbors, and that's just not an issue here. I don't think, I'm not good technically speaking, and I certainly am screwing this up from what I can see, but this is what the backyard looks like. And to the left of the photograph, you can see that's the, I believe, the southern side. You can see there's just a building there, and there's a lot in between. And to the northern elevation, there's this corrugated building, eastern side, there's a corrugated building. So I just want the board to be aware of that.
Mr. Farber, can I ask you a question before we go forward?
Sure, sir.
Do you need a DEP approval to put this in the 100-year floodplain?
We do not, we have a DEP letter. I don't think they would give an approval, but Mr. Lyman can go into that. I think we obtained enough of a clearance from them.
I'm sorry.
Yes? Bill, are you trying to speak?
If I might, Rob, Bill Fitzgerald, yeah. I might speak with my pictures off because I got a terrible cold and it might not be pretty. They don't need a DEP permit. What is going on over the last year and a half or so? It's been around forever. This application first came in probably 20 years ago. Well, this site first came in probably 20 years ago. because it's number 303 in my files. We started at 0 in Ocean, and we're now up in the 1600s. So it's an early lot. Having said that, okay, the threshold issue was putting a pool in the flood hazard area, and there was conflicting information. And so the Salames hired an expert who's here, and you may hear from him tonight if needs be, to do a detailed analysis. DEP looked at the analysis, said, yeah, okay, we'll buy it. It met the original approval. And based on that, this is what's called a permit by rule, which means they can do it without DEP approval. They simply need to write a letter to say, DEP, we're putting in our pool. Okay, so there's nothing, from my point of view, from an engineering point of view, more at issue. I was the one holding it up because until they did the analysis and until DEP bought into it, I just was waiting. And so we have a letter from DEP, the section chief, saying it's a permit by rule, by our standards, we're good with it. So I'm good with it.
Okay.
All right. I would just like to call Mr. William Jensen as our first witness. Are you there, William? I saw you on the list.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Jensen, just briefly, you're a licensed engineer of the state of New Jersey, and you've appeared as an expert before this board as an engineer on numerous other occasions.
Yes, I've appeared before boards throughout Monmouth and Ocean County as well.
Thank you, Mr. Carver. Mr. Jensen, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, address, and I know you've been here before. I won't ask you for your credentials, but.
Sure. It's William E. Jensen, Jr., Jensen. Office address is 2150 Route 35, Suite 250, Seagirt, New Jersey, 08750.
Mr. Carver.
Thank you. Mr. Jensen, this is an application to put a pool and some patio around it, correct?
Correct.
You have the ability to screen share with what you have, your plan?
I don't have the ability to screen share, but I can show the board if they need to, if they don't have it in front of them. But
They should. Does the board have the plan in front of them, the site plan?
Well, I think we do, yes.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Could you just describe what's entailed, then the bulk variances, please?
Sure. So as was described below, the property, the residential property to the north of the property is a residential property, and across the street to the west is residential. But to the east, south, and southwest are all commercial properties. The rear of the property all drains to the south-southwest. And the big issue on the property was that it's located in the flood zone. So with that, the bulk variance for the lot coverage is 0%. We did design the pool to meet all the accessory setbacks, the lot coverage, the lot coverage requirements, and also the board professionals requested a drainage system, which we provided. As indicated before, when we talked to DEP, this project, it's a NJDEP flood hazard area permit by rule number 21, which we meet all the conditions for, which allows the pool to be built back there. So with that being said, there are no issues with the pool as proposed, and I believe we addressed all the professionals' comments, and I can take some questions on it.
It's a 20 by 40 foot pool?
Correct. It's a 20 by 40 foot pool. The coping around the pool meets the 10-foot setback minimum. There's approximately, I'm just pulling up my calculations right here. There's approximately 883 square feet of proposed pool coping and patio that goes around the pool. Grade change will not there's no grade change as part of the DEP permit. The grade has to remain consistent with what exists out there today. So we designed it that way and directed all runoff into the proposed drainage system around the property.
Very good.
So it's a pool, it's the surround, there isn't a cabana, there isn't any infringements on side yard or rear yard?
Now, all the setbacks have been, for the accessory pool structure have been, meet the zoning ordinance in the R4 zone. Same with the coverage, besides the fact that it's in the flood zone, which is 0, but we still tried to meet the coverage requirement of 90%. And there are no other structures. It's just a pool, the patio, and the filter. And there's an existing deck that's in the backyard.
It's a wooden raised deck, correct?
Correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Jensen?
Anyone from the board have questions for Mr. Jensen? Anyone from the public have any questions for Mr.
I
Jensen?
have a quick question.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Chairman, sorry, I have a quick question. When the pool is dug, everything that comes out will be taken away?
Correct. Besides minor grading changes, all the material has to be taken from the property. Correct. So there can't be any change in grade. They can't raise the property by a foot or two. It's got to meet close to the existing grade and allow for grading, the drainage, the grading to make it.
Any other questions from the board? Barbara, does that conclude your case?
No. Quickly, does the public have any questions for Mr. Jensen?
I asked that.
I didn't hear you. Okay. I have no questions for Mr. Jensen, but I do have Mr. Patrick Lyman, who is from EnviroTactics. He is a certified floodplain expert, and I would like to elicit testimony from him, if I may.
Okay, Mr. Lyman.
Patrick, you there?
I'm here.
Please raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, your address.
Patrick Lyman, Lyman, and I work at EnviroTactics, 1330 Laurel Avenue, Building 3 in Seagirt, New Jersey, 08753.
Have you ever testified before this board before?
I have not.
Please give us your credentials.
I'm a senior project manager at EnviroTactics and certified floodplain manager.
And you're a certified what?
Floodplain manager.
Okay.
All right. I'm just going to proffer his opinion testimony regarding the environmental concerns, as well as just to reiterate what Mr. Fitzgerald said regarding DEP. Patrick, you did communicate with DEP, and you addressed the issues that Mr. Fitzpatrick was concerned about, correct?
Correct. Yes, we received.
You want to just elaborate on them very briefly?
Absolutely. We used a 3D mapping program to determine the on-site flood storage volume, and we determined that the project, the house had originally been constructed in conformance with with the original permit. And then we were able to conclude then that the proposed pool would meet the permit by rule requirements, and that was confirmed with a applicability determination issued by the DEP.
Mr. Lyman, I have a question for you. Are you an engineer?
I am not.
Okay.
But we had our mapping program reviewed and all of our work reviewed by a professional engineer.
The review was done with the overview of Mr. Jensen, but the issue primarily was bringing Stemfell in. He is the individual from DEP. And these discussions were had, and there were technical meetings, and it was passed on by Mr. Fitzgerald.
Okay.
I have nothing further from Mr. Lyman unless the board has any other questions, or the public.
Does anyone from the board have questions for Mr. Lyman? Does anyone from the public have questions for Mr. Lennon? Amy, please turn on your microphone. Please close the public hearing.
Do we want to enter our reports from our professionals now? Is that what we said we're going to do?
Okay, Mr. Fitzgerald, do you have a report?
And so does Mr. Higgins. But we need them for the record, I would
I
say.
do, Mr. Chairman. I gave it to you verbally. I have no problem with this for the reasons I stated.
Okay. Mr. Higgins, do you have a report? Mr. Higgins, please turn on your microphone. Mr. Higgins. There we go. Go ahead.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. There are two variances necessary. One is for construction in a floodplain, and the other one is a variance from the requirement for impervious coverage, which is 90% of the buildable lot area. And since the buildable lot area is 0, you need a variance from that, but you can't calculate what the impervious coverage is because you can't divide by 0. But you do need they do need a variance from that requirement because clearly they exceed the requirement. There's just, I don't know how Mark can write that into the resolution, but
We've done it before.
Yeah.
Because they're in a floodplain, all of the areas are not considered buildable.
that's
So
correct. Yeah,
if they get a variance for the, to build in the floodplain, then we can back it out into the other technical variant.
okay. But I have no problem with the application.
Now,
Mark, is that standard?
yeah, we've done that before. I mean, since our ordinance eliminates or doesn't use any part of the site that is in an environmentally sensitive area to calculate building coverage, since it's 0, you can't divide by 0 and get a percentage. I understand it, even as a lawyer. We usually divide by thirds, but not by 0. But by granting the building this pool in the impervious in the floodplain, the other one sort of comes naturally. So we have no problem with that. What I do want to know is we would like to enter these reports though. Still should have a packet as B1 now that they testify.
I'm sorry, I missed that.
Okay, yeah, I have no problem with the variances or putting them into a resolution form, but we have 2 reports by our professionals that were submitted to the board, so that the packet of the board's packet could be entered as an exhibit.
Okay.
We haven't done that yet, have that? Correct, Amy?
Yeah, I marked it.
Okay, so the board's packet is B1, and we've heard from our professionals. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions from the board once again? Any questions from the public? Mr. Farber, does that conclude your case?
It does. It's pretty straightforward. We ask for approval. 3/4 of the reasons that you have an objection with a pool on a bulk is moot here because it's commercial and it's right by the water processing plant. So we'd ask that this be granted. Thank you so much.
Since there's no questions from the public and the board, Amy, please close the public hearing. I need a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
Worrell, second.
I'll second.
That's Fuller.
Fuller, second.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Worrell.
Yes.
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 Mr. Ashkenazi?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Farber.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We seem to have a lot of background noise here.
Just everybody's mic.
But can I just mention, Amy, when you face away from your screen, you're also facing away from the mic. And a lot of us can't hear you.
Okay.
When you call the roll, if you could face the mic, it'd be helpful.
It's weird though, because I can hear Amy now, but I couldn't before.
Okay, we're good. All right, thank you, Mr. Farber. That brings us to case number 4, LIP AC Limited.
Excuse me, I think there was a resolution to close the public comment. I don't think you made a resolution on the application.
That's right. I'm sorry, we didn't. Okay, I need motion on this case. Who's offering?
Worrell, we grant the full variance along with the D variance.
Second, Manila. Second.
Hey, Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Manel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner?
Yes.
Mr. Worrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Mamie?
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi? Jessica?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Farber. Sorry.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman and ladies and gentlemen of the board.
Thank you very much.
Next case is case number 4, LIPAC Limited Liability Company, Block 216, Lot 15 and 16, 1501, 1503 Allen Avenue, Ocean, Zone C3. This is an application to remove the conditions of a 1992 zoning board resolution, including the required deed restrictions. Attorney for the applicant, Jennifer Krimko. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Is there a packet? Yeah, there should be. Okay. Ms. Krimko, it's all you.
Good evening, Mr. Shepherd, members of the board. I'm still Jennifer Krimko from Ansel Grimm and Aaron on behalf of this applicant. Unlike the last one, I don't have any witnesses and I don't have any exhibits. Simply back in 1992, I think it was, there was an approval for a prior use on the subject property. As a condition of that prior use, there were several conditions imposed, including the imposition of a deed restriction. Since that time, there were several new approvals that were obtained from this board, and apparently whomever was seeking those approvals never realized, or everybody forgot about this deed restriction, both the board and the then applicant's attorneys. So it has changed uses several times over the years, and no one realized that there was this outstanding, now irrelevant deed restriction relative to a use that no longer exists. So I think what I'd like to do is turn it over to Mr. Higgins. I think in this particular case, his report would be the most apt in that he outlines how there is no longer a need for this deed restriction and therefore it should be removed.
Mr. Higgins.
Yes. Okay. I'm not going to read my report in the record, but I'll just summarize. What Ms. Krimko says is correct. There was a number of conditions in the 1992 approval that the board required that those conditions be put into a deed restriction. There have been subsequent approvals on the site, and none of those conditions actually apply to what's on this site at this point in time. They're totally irrelevant. So the deed restriction is completely irrelevant and it should be removed. The only suggestion I would have is that the most recent approval for that site was in 2013. There was one condition in that approval that related to Bill's report. And I think that should be, if the board chooses to recommend that this deed restriction be removed, part of the resolution should be that that one condition of approval from the 2013 resolution also be included in the current resolution, so there's no confusion in the future.
And we have no problem with that, Mr. Shepherd, because that condition had to do with changes to the site plan subject to his review and approval as to improvements on the site. Those improvements have been approved, constructed, and been in existence all these years. So we don't have any issue with that at all. And the reason for coming here is that because of the deed restriction, it's basically a mar on the title, and the current owners would not be able to sell it based on this restriction because it's not free and clear. So since this restriction has no applicability to the current use, we would ask that it be removed. Originally, we had tried to do that going through the town council first, but the case law is pretty clear that if the condition was imposed by this board at a public hearing, then the condition would have to be lifted by this board at a public hearing. So what we would ask is if the board agrees to, Mark, if I can just real quick, if the board agrees to lift this, that the resolution explicitly say that the board has no issue if the governing body determined that they lift it, because obviously we would need their sign off in order to do so.
Yeah, I guess that's my question. If the board votes in favor of this, there's a problem in recommending to the mayor and council that they vacate the deed restriction. But I don't think we as the board have the power to vacate it. We have the power to recommend and request, I guess.
Well, again, and the deed restriction was put as a condition of this board's approval, so I believe that this board would have to be part and parcel of it. And I certainly think that a deed notice recording any resolution authorizing the extinguishment of the deed restriction signed by both the board as well as the council and recorded would suffice.
Russ Malta.
Just two things. I think what Jennifer says makes sense. I think we have to, as a board, remove the restriction, and then the council can remove, we're removing the condition, and then they would remove the deed restriction. The only question I have no problem with the whole concept. I just need a little clarification. The condition was put on because of a use variance in 92. Do we have to remove that use variance that was granted in 92, or as a practical matter, because of the way things have developed on there, it can't be used that way? I'm not clear on it.
That's right, Mr. Malta. So there have been numerous use variances since then, and it was approved as a furniture warehouse. It's now a self-storage with offices and some light industrial. So the way that the site has been developed is it's no longer applicable at all. That use variance actually doesn't exist anymore since the subsequent use variances and site plans that were granted rendered it moot.
The later one proceeded, it's no longer got a variance as a warehouse, I take it. Am I understanding that right?
Yeah, but
no,
they
there
have
is
redeveloped the site in 2013 on a use variance. We reapproved it for a different type of use.
Right.
We just didn't eliminate the deed restriction because we weren't asked. So what's there now has been approved. So there's no need for this deed restriction. So I think Ms. Sprinko is correct. I will work with her on the language if the board votes in favor of removing that, so that we can get something that'll be acceptable to a title company.
Sure.
Any other questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Peter Young, 610 Deal Road. Just in plain old English, what is the restriction that applicant's attorney is asking to remove?
I can read that into the record. Give me 1 minute. Back in 1992, when this was approved as a furniture warehouse, it was conditioned on the following.
Russ, please shut off your microphone.
It was conditioned on the following. Plans will be revised by grantors to show additional gravel parking on the east side of the site, approved on the original site plan. The use is strictly limited to furniture storage warehouse. The grantor shall have no more than 9 employees. There shall be no sidewalk loading, and all customer pickups shall be from inside the building. Customers shall not be allowed on the mezzanine at any time. The site shall have office space limited to 800 square feet. The grantor shall limit sales from the site to 1 per quarter of the year, with a maximum duration of each sale to be no more than 5 days each. These restrictions shall run with the land and shall be binding upon the successors and assigns. Those were the conditions.
I'm not an expert, but it seems very minor.
Excuse me, who's testifying? Who's asking the questions?
Hill Road.
What is your name?
Peter Young.
Peter, you haven't been sworn in. I'm gonna have to swear you in.
And we need Mr. Young's address too.
Mr. Young, raise your right hand, please. Do you swear to tell the truth, whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, and your address.
Peter Young, J-U-N-G, 610 Deal Road.
Well, may I just ask a question? Peter, did you change your last name legally?
No, if you like my full last name legally, it's J-U-N-G-U-N-S-T, but for your convenience and others, I often go on the shortened version.
Right, but this is a quasi judicial proceeding, so I think it's important that you use your legal name.
So noted.
Okay, was your question answered, Mr. Young?
Yes, I believe Ms. Krimko answered it. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other questions from the board? Are there any other questions from the public? Need a motion to close the public hearing.
Mr. Shepherd, could you just open it for public comment before you close the public?
I asked the public if there was any questions. Do you want me to see if there's any comments now?
I believe legally we have to.
I'm not sure of that, but okay. Mr. Steinberg, do I have to do that?
If it satisfies Ms. Krimko, there's no reason not. We had no testimony, so other than.
Okay.
But the public still is entitled to offer comments on the application.
Are there any comments from the public?
Yes, this is Peter Youngkunst again at 610 Deal Road. I think Attorney Krimko is correct. It's still open. Public comment.
Sir, you're still under oath, okay?
Okay.
I have a question as to your introductory statement as to the amount of time that the public got. I believe it was 5 minutes and the applicants got 45 minutes. Is there like a statute that you can reference as to how much time residents get?
It has nothing to do with this application. The board has the right under the municipal land use law to make a procedural program, which we have done.
So you read that into the record tonight, if I understand it
This has
correctly.
nothing to do with this application, sir.
Okay. Do I have any comments from the public that have to do with this application?
I believe I got 5 minutes for public comment, not specific to any application.
No.
Anything on my part?
Only on the application.
Oh, okay, not on procedure.
No.
Which application then are we specifically referring to that I am limited to?
The current one before the board.
Okay, so my question was really to your introductory statement as to procedure.
No, we're in the middle of an application.
Asking a question, and
If you have nothing else to say on this application, we can close the public hearing.
I don't feel like my question is answered, but so.
I need a motion from someone from the board to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
I need a second.
Second, Deal.
Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Manel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner? Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi, Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Now, Mark, how do we do this?
You can, someone can offer a resolution to direct, to remove the deed restriction, and Jennifer and I will work out the details as to how that has to be put in a format both acceptable to a title company and acceptable to the mayor and council.
Someone please offer.
Malta, I move that we remove the condition that was placed in 1992 and recommend to the council that the deed restriction be removed.
I'll second.
Amy, please call a roll.
Fuller,
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner, Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal.
Yes. Did you get my yes, Amy?
Oh, no, there you go.
Sorry.
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes.
Okay.
Ms. Kripko, thank you.
Thank you. And Amy, who seconded that, just for my records?
Mr. Worrell.
All right, thank you. Good night, everybody.
All right. Brings us to case number 5. Kenneth Greenstein. Sorry. Block
Greenstein.
22. Greenstein. Sorry. Block 22, lot 90, 204 West Morgan Avenue, Ocean, Zone C1. This is an application to expand an existing single-family home by increasing the building height to 4 stories, increasing the building footprint, construction, and open front porch, and to remove the above-ground pool and replace an in-ground pool, as well as maintain an existing basketball court. Attorney for the applicant, Mr. Farber.
Good
How are you
evening again. Nice to be back, everybody. I
Wait,
represent.
one second. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Okay, is it marked, Amy?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Farber.
Mr. Chairman, good evening. Again, I represent Kenneth Greenstein, Block 22, Lot 90, 204 West Morgan Avenue. This is a bulk and a use variance. The property is located C1 commercial. It's obviously residential. Again, walking the property today and in the past, it is on a commercial street. It backs up to what I guess in the side yard is what used to be Lester's. I think it's called Zaire, you know, that building next to the chocolate soda. And then on the west side, you have a home, but in the backyard, which I believe is the northern side, there's another, I'm sorry, the southern side, there's a parking lot. And across the street, there's a parking lot. This house is not, it's technically 4 stories. The renderings have been presented. If you look at the renderings, it's really 2 stories with dormers in the attic. The architect is here, as well as the engineer. But what I'd like to point out and be candid with you is you're not going to be able to conclude this tonight. We're going to need environmental work done because, again, tonight's my floodplain night. They're in the floodplain. We did not get any approvals or ask the DEP at this point. We want to get a sense as to whether the board finds the bulk and use variances acceptable before we embark on that journey. And I'm going to ask to adjourn after we just put a quick overview as to what we're looking to do. There is on the property an above-ground pool. We're looking to remove that and put an in-ground pool. We're also looking to get approval for the pre-existing basketball court, which apparently was not permitted correctly. We want to make it kosher, so to speak. Regarding the home itself, interestingly enough, there's no real negative criteria to this. You're just building a really nice residential home on a commercial block that doesn't have really nice commercial home or residential homes. And I don't mean that as a disrespect to the other homeowners there, but it's just going to really beautify this particular house. And I don't think there's anything offensive about it. But I think the board, I would like you folks to hear, and I would like to start with the site plan. And I would ask the board hear the testimony of my engineer, John Lord, who is present. Mr. Lord, if you could come on, and either I or the chairman will qualify you.
Mr. Farber, I'm gonna, let me defer to my professionals for 1 minute on this.
Okay.
Mr. Fitzgerald and Mr. Higgins, have you looked at these plans?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have, and I don't have any problem with what they're proposing.
Yeah, I have also.
And from planning and zoning standpoint,
I have
the
also.
variances all make sense. It's a commercial area, and you have to apply the R4 standards rather than the C1 standards. The R4 standards are much more strict. There are a number of variants necessary, when in reality, if this site were developed for commercial purposes, most of those variances would go away.
Okay,
And
Mr.
this
Higgins.
will wind up being, I think, the nicest looking house on the street.
Thank you. Mr. Fitzgerald?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I said in my report exactly what Mr. Farber presented to you as his opening argument. The matter needs a flood hazard elevation verification from DEP, at which point the exact variances and or impacts or whatever can be evaluated. Having said that, that can get expensive. For this one, it shouldn't be. But I think it's only fair that the board, they presented all the information you need to make a decision on the house bulk issues and on the D issue as to height.
Okay.
While you don't want to formalize that decision at this point, I think it's fair that you give the applicant an indication so he doesn't go to DEP and then come back and kind of get blindsided. And I think Jim has given you his opinion as to the planning issues.
So, Mr. Farber, in the essence of not wasting time, why don't we take a straw poll by the board?
No, we don't do straw polls, okay?
You don't want to do
Well,
that, right?
I think you have to just hear very, very quickly from my experts, very quickly. And I'm talking abridged versions, if that's all right.
All right, Mr. Steinberg, I have a question for you though. Okay, let's just listen to the professionals and then we'll go from there.
I mean, you can certainly say at the end of the professionals that if this had proper DEP foundation, that you would have no objections, and that's what they're looking for. We don't
Exactly.
Let's stay away from straw polls. We'll stay away from informal decisions.
Right. Okay. All right. You're absolutely 100% right.
And just so for the record, as the applicant's lawyer, I understand anything you say is not binding upon you. And it's not like we're going to come back and, change anything, but we just want to get a feel. So if I may just call John Lord.
Okay, Mr. Lord, raise your right hand, please. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Mr. Lord, are you there? I think you need unmute.
Hello? I can't hear him. Mr. Lord, we can't hear you.
I see he's there. He has his microphone on according to my attendees list.
Mine also.
John,
I can't hear him.
Can you hear me? Hello? Well, if Mr. Lord isn't there, I can start with the architect, Mr. Aboria. Emmanuel, are you present?
Yes, I am.
Okay,
Lord,
let's start with the architect.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name and address, please.
Emmanuel Obiora, O-B-I-O-R-A. My office is located on 504 Aldrich Road, Howell, New Jersey, Suite 1C.
Have you testified before this board before?
I may have a very, very long time ago, but I just can't remember when, but I think I've been in front of this board many years ago.
Can you give us some of your credentials, please?
I have a Bachelor of Architecture degree from the University of Southwestern Louisiana. I've been licensed to practice architecture in the state of New Jersey since 1990, and I've testified in front of many boards across the state.
Okay, thank you very much.
So
Mr.
first
Farber?
of all, I apologize for butchering your name, but if you could describe the additions to the house. There's a basement, and technically it's described as 4 stories, but it's really 2 stories. And there's an attic with dormers. Am I correct?
Correct. What we have essentially is a basement which is kind of raised, and I guess based on the ordinance, your ordinance, it's counted as a floor. But what essentially exists there now is a 1.5-story house with a basement. And what we're proposing to do is to take out the half story, make it a full 2-story, and then with another attic on top of that. In addition to that, there's a porch in the front of the building which we want to expand to the full width of the building. The current stairs that come into the building from the sidewalk we are retaining. So all the work we're going to do is starting from where the current porch is to expand it to meet the existing width of the building, and to take the half story that's on top of the existing first floor now and make that a full story, and then put another attic on top of that with dormers.
Very good. So this is just to enhance the living room in the home, correct? So there's more room, there's children, have bedrooms and all of that. How many bedrooms are there in this proposal?
I believe there are 4 bedrooms.
Okay. So it's not anything overwhelming. And in
No.
terms of the height, it's higher, but it's not as high as a commercial building that's on Norwood Avenue that abuts it to the east, correct?
Correct.
All righty. Then there's a front porch. In fact, in the packet, I believe, Mr. Chairman, everybody should have a rendering of the home. Is that correct?
Right.
That is correct.
Mr. Chairman, do you have the rendering?
I
Should
have the
been-
rendering.
Okay.
I have. My question is the attic living space or storage space? He
Well,
said,
it could meet the requirements of living space based on the building code. It could also be storage, but right now it's open for storage. I don't know if the client will want to turn that into living space in the future or not, but as far as the building code is concerned, it's allowed to be used as a living space.
okay.
Are there any other questions that the board has?
Any questions from the board? Any questions from the public?
Is this Block 3, Lot 49?
Who is that?
Peter Young, 610 Deal Road.
What was your question, sir?
Just remind me of the block and lot number.
It's block 22, lot 90.
Thank you.
Do you have any other questions of the architect?
No.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Is Mr. Lord on?
I believe I
Can
saw.
you hear me now? Can
John,
hear
are
me
you
now?
there? Yes, he is.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes. Mr. Lord, raise your right hand, please. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Please state your name, spell your last name, give us your address.
My name is John Lord, Lord. My address is 877 Ocean View Drive in Toms River, 08753.
And you
Mr.
are a
Licensed
I'm a
engineer.
I'm a licensed professional engineer, a licensed professional land surveyor, and a licensed professional planner. I have testified before your board many, many years ago. It's been quite some time, but I've also testified numerous boards throughout the state, actually. And
That's okay. All those licenses are held in the state of New Jersey, correct?
Yes, they are.
Okay, Mr. Farber.
Mr. Lord, I described a pool being removed. I described a pre-existing basketball court that was never properly permitted, and I described a proposed in-the-ground pool. Can you, for purposes of very, very quickly, just describe the pool? It should be in their packets, but are there any bulk variances regarding the pool itself in terms of setbacks?
No, the pool meets the setbacks.
And as pertains to the footprint of the house, there's front yard issues, I believe, regarding bulk, but some of them are pre-existing already. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. According to the tax records, the house was originally constructed in 1931. So they are all pre-existing. The front yard, the side yard are all pre-existing variances.
I'm really glad this house isn't in Allenhurst. But in any event, what I would like to ask you, the basketball court, how is it in terms of the bulk requirements? Is it all right?
As far as the bulk requirements, yes.
Okay. Are there any questions?
The requirement that it wasn't approved, it wasn't permitted prior is the issue.
But in terms of its existing nature, it doesn't offend the R4 criteria that apply in the C1 zone, correct?
That's correct.
And in terms, I'm sorry?
Rob, this is Jim Higgins. It does require a minor front yard setback variance. The ordinance requires 30 feet, it's at 28 feet.
Okay, yes, that's right. It's at 2 point.
But it is set back behind the existing front of the house. It doesn't jut out in front of the house.
That's correct.
Okay.
And again, in the totality of where this is located in such a commercial area, the next door neighbor was noticed, they're not complaining. They probably play basketball on it. But in any event, having said that, are there any other questions for Mr. Lord from any of the board members?
Questions from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I got a question. I think this is requiring a variance for a number of
Bill, I'm
parking
not
stalls
hearing
on a
you.
residential property.
Bill,
Repeat
can
that.
I
you
only
repeat
see
what you
one
said?
on the plan. Bill Fitzgerald, I'm sorry.
I lost Bill.
You lost me again?
Yeah, we lost you, Bill.
Am I there now?
You're here.
I don't know how. Okay, I'm here. All right, so the question is, how many parking spaces are on the site?
At this point, 1.
And recess requires for this many bedrooms, 2.5?
That would be 2.5, yes.
Yes.
Can we get 2?
Yes, we could.
Okay.
I'm not gonna ask you to get the half in there. I never can figure that out anyway, but.
And Bill, just for the record, everybody, across the street is a parking lot, and I doubt that it's ever full. Having lived in Deal all my life until I got married, anyway, that's not the story.
Yeah, well, you know what, Rob, in normal, I don't have an issue with it, except that there's some things going on in that general neighborhood that maybe aren't here yet. And number 2, I understand where you're going, but you don't have a right to that. So if we can just get it closer to conforming, it's probably better. That's
We
all.
have no objection to putting in
We
2
won't squabble
spaces.
over that.
We'll
Okay.
definitely put in 2 spaces.
So what, Bill, they would need to widen the existing paved drive?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much all it is, Mark. That's what it looks like to me.
Would they then run into other variances for lot coverage or?
It would increase the coverage variances, yes.
All right.
But again, if we're in a flood zone, we're at 0 anyway, correct?
Anyway.
Well,
Right.
no, that's the problem, Rob. You don't, that's why you need the DEP verification of the elevation. Because
Yeah.
it's impossible right now to determine how much buildable area you have, how many, I don't think you're quite as bad as the Salamies where they're entirely in. But
Okay,
a substantial portion is going to be.
okay. Well, I'm going to call Patrick Lyman on this one with
Hold
my
on, wait, Bill, you're good. Bill, you're good.
Yeah. I just wanted to think it should be closer to conforming if you can.
like I said, Mr. Greenstein
And
is on, and I presume that Mr. Greenstein will not object to 2 parking spaces versus 1.
Not at all.
Okay, you're not under oath, but
Not under oath.
for the record, Mr. Greens, I'm representing that my client will have no objection.
Okay, I'm not going to swear Mr. Greenstein in at this hour. Mr. Farber, do you have any other, no other
I
witnesses?
have no
correct?
other witnesses at this time. You may
So-
want to open the questioning of Mr. Lord to the public.
Well, does anyone have any questions for Mr. Lord? From the board? Does anyone from the general public have questions for Mr. Lord? Okay, so Mr. Fitzgerald, where are you? Not Mr. Fitzgerald, I'm sorry. Mr. Steinberg, where are you?
I believe the applicant wants to now carry the matter in order to get his DEP approval and then possibly amend the numbers for the variances, possible. I don't know. And that's not a problem. We have to carry it by month to month, I would guess.
Yeah, and it's probably going to take a while. But I just wanted to get a sense, is there anything that anybody sees as problematic? We will get the second parking space on the plan. It will be revised accordingly. But is there anything problematic that anybody sees? You're not bound by what you're about to say, but I'm just asking.
Anyone from the board have problems?
I have no concerns right now so far.
Okay.
The basement is not living space, is it? Rob, the basement is not living space, is it?
I think that's something we have to ask Mr. Boria. I don't believe it is.
I don't believe it.
Manuel?
It's mostly storage and utilities.
There are no bedrooms in the basement, and there can be no bedrooms, correct?
I'm sorry.
That's my recollection, yes.
No, but I'm not sure it can be living space. If you intend to put living space in there, then you're going to need a DEP to approve that aspect of your application. I think maybe not. Maybe they'll waive it or have no interest, but it's below the flood elevation substantially, like 4 feet,
Okay.
3 feet, something like that. So
It's basically storage and utilities. I don't know. I don't recall right now because it's been a while since I've been there. Maybe Mr. Greenstein can answer, but I think they may have had a laundry room or something down there.
Mr. Farber, I'm going to make this simple. I have a big problem if there's going to be living space in the basement. Okay? If there's not living space in the basement, I don't have a problem.
So long as it's nothing more than a laundry room, I presume you're good with that, correct?
Sure. Storage,
Very
laundry
good.
room. Yeah.
Very good. Then I don't see any problem there.
So should
All
we
right.
carry this to the case of February? Are there any more questions from the board? Any questions from the public? So we're going to carry this to the February 18th case, 2021. Is that okay,
Very
Mr. Farmer?
good. Mr. Chairman and everybody on the board and experts and Mark, thank you so much. Bill, feel better. And everybody take
Thanks so
care.
much.
Have a good
Appreciate
evening.
it.
Good night,
Thank
all.
you.
Good night.
That brings us to case number 6. Joseph and Lynn Mahoney, block
Kidding me?
3, lot 49, 40 Birch Road, Oakhurst, Zone R5. Sorry, it was continued on the next page. What is this? This is an application to enclose an existing rear patio, construct a second-story deck, construct a 6-foot fence, place a 150-square-foot shed, install a 20-foot round above-ground pool, and install air conditioning equipment and a generator. Variance for maximum building impervious coverage and construction within a floodplain. Jeez, got these floodplains. Okay. are we here?
Yes,
we are.
sir.
Okay. Please, are you both going to testify?
Either one, whoever knows the answer.
Okay, both of you.
I will
please-
let my husband do the talking.
Yeah,
For what?
until he makes a mistake. I swear him both in.
Okay, yeah, let's both raise your right hand. You swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
We do.
Okay.
I do.
Please both state your names and addresses.
My name is Joseph Maloney, 40 Branch Road, Oakhurst, New Jersey.
And mine is Lynn Maloney, 40 Branch Road, Oakhurst, New Jersey, 07755.
Okay. Amy, please mark the packet.
Okay.
Mr. Higgins, do you have a report?
Yeah, basically, I will summarize again. This is very similar to the one you had earlier tonight. The entire site is within the floodplain, so that the variances for building and impervious coverage are really technicalities, because there's no buildable lot area, because the entire site's within a floodplain. The coverage would be approximately 20%, and the building coverage would be approximately 20%, and the impervious will be approximately 30%, both of which were well below the ordinance requirements if the entire site were to be buildable. And the main variance, again, is construction within a floodplain, and I defer to Bill on that.
Mr. Fitzgerald.
Mr. Chairman, not to split hairs here, but it's worse than a floodplain. It's in a floodway. So a flood hazard area has two parts to it. The floodway, which is what's needed to safely carry the flood flow, if you will, and then the flood fringe, or what people call the floodplain, the outside areas. This particular property is in a floodway, which was a real surprise to me. And it's different than the other two that you've already heard tonight that have had flood hazard area issues. And Poplar Brook floods worse than Whale Pond Brook does. And those houses were both, farther than, actually within 300 feet of the brook. And this house is more than 300 feet from the brook, and it's in a floodway. So it was a bit of a surprise. Having said that, it's much more difficult to get DEP individual permits for activities in a floodway. So of the activities that the Maloneys are proposing, the open ornamental fence meets all requirements of the DEP for a permit by rule for construction in a floodway. So that is something you can approve, subject to the Maloneys doing whatever DEP requires, which is basically sending them a letter. The other activities all would require Maloneys to apply to NJDEP for individual permits. Most, if not all of them, would be permits by rule if they weren't in a floodway, but they're specifically prohibited in the floodway. So my guess is that the Maloneys may decide in the future to do one or two if there are priorities, possibly none. But my recommendation is it's not about a flood hazard area elevation or anything else. So you could approve it subject to, as I said, the permit by rule for the fence. They comply with anything they have to, and they must get individual permits for any other activity in the floodway prior to applying for any construction permit from the township.
Thank you.
Trust me, if they get the permits, they'll have done anything that you would normally require or even abnormally require for that kind of construction.
Okay. Okay, Mr. Maloney or Mrs. Maloney, you heard Mr. Fitzgerald first, but why don't you tell us what your plans are?
Well, I can appreciate the concerns. I mean, we've lived in Ocean Township or Oakhurst, for almost 40 years now. Now, the question that springs to my mind, it's going to be constructed, the deck on the patio that already exists. The room is like an add-on to it after that. I don't see where the construction of that would be in any way interfering with any kind of flood problem or anything else, because the patio already exists. So,
I don't think, Mark, or Bill, somebody tell me, but I don't think we have the ability to make
Yeah,
that
I think,
judgment.
all right, Mr. Maloney, what I'm trying to tell the board is, I kind of agree with your position. And so I'm asking the board to approve your matter, subject to you getting the individual permits from the DEP. We can't waive the requirement for them. Okay, but I think what I'm asking the board to tell you is that if you can get those permits, the town would have no problem with you doing your constructions. But
that sounds reasonable.
you must
I
go
mean,
to
I
DEP
appreciate
for the activities in the floodway, other than your open fence.
I can appreciate the concerns, you know, the township would have with that, but I do know the area. I lived here for 40 years. And if that's what we need to do, then that's what we'll do. And we appreciate your time.
Right. Let me just ask a couple questions. You want to enclose an existing rear patio and construct a second-story deck?
Once you close it with screening, it's way different. It's much more likely to get a permit.
That's
right, but
what we
you
intended.
want to do that to expand the use of your outdoors?
No, actually, it's
Why do you want?
well, we have a bi-level, and again, it would be an elevated deck. My wife really wants it. You want to know the truth, but I figured, well, if we're going to put a deck on, maybe we can enclose the bottom half.
You know, but I mean, you want to do that because you want a deck that's on level with your kitchen?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, I need some reasons in a resolution, which makes sense. With level with your kitchen, then you have the space below, and it would be nice to use that as a screened-in area. I have no problem with that. Okay. The 6-foot fence on the southern property line, why do you want a 6-foot fence there?
For our dog.
Okay. That's fine with me. And
that fence is open, correct?
That's correct.
What do you mean by open? What kind of fence will it be?
It's almost like
it's an ornamental,
like an iron fence, like you would see in a school.
Okay,
State fence.
It's or state fence. Okay, and that's fine. The construction of 150 square foot shed. Now, what do you need more? Do you have a basement?
I do not. I have a garage, and I have so much stuff in there now between snow blowers and lawn mowers and power washers. I have no room.
You certainly don't have room for a car, too, right? Okay.
No. Well, my car's out on the street, so it's always been that way.
Yeah, all right. Since there's no basement in the garage, it's used for storage, and you can't have a garage for car where it should be for. Okay. The 20-foot round above ground pool is certainly for recreation. And install air conditioning equipment and a generator. You're talking about for the air conditioner, you don't have central air conditioning at this?
No, we don't.
Okay, so you need central air. Okay, and of course you'll need a pad for that, and you want a generator. Okay.
That's correct.
Any special reason for the generator? Health reason?
Well, like everyone else, we experienced Sandy, and we were without electricity for a week, and I'm not getting any younger, so I'd like to be as comfortable as possible.
Okay, I mean, you know, I think there's enough testimony that I've heard in order to, the board wants to create a positive resolution, but he's going to unfortunately have to get involved with the DEP for final approval. That would have to be conditioned of any approval.
That's fine.
Does anyone from the board have any questions on this?
No.
Does anyone from the public have any questions on this?
Yes, this is Peter Youngkunst again, 610 Deal Road. I'd just like to know the dog's name and breed.
His name is Bubba, and he's part bull mastiff pit.
Okay, thank you. Okay, anyone else from the public have a question? I need a motion to close the public hearing.
I make a motion to close the public hearing.
Need a
Malta
second.
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 Amy, please call the roll.
Yes.
Malta,
Yes.
Manal, Mr. Manal.
I said yes, I don't know. if you could- yeah.
Okay, great. Mr. Van Wagner, Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Ms. Steele,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Mr. Ashkenazi, Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Mr. Fitzgerald, can we go through this again? So what we're approving and what we have to,
Sure.
thank you.
Okay,
sorry,
I got my letter up there.
I'm sorry, Bill, not you, Mr. Steinberg. Tell us how to vote on, do this.
Oh, okay, I just put this away. This is basically the request for variance in this instance is maximum building and impervious coverage, which is similar to the other issue that we had tonight, other similar case. That is caused by being construction in the floodplain / floodway. There is no area on this site, I would assume, that is permitted to be developed. So you get a 0. Again, you're dividing by 0, so you get a 0. So that they're asking for the construction in this environmentally sensitive area, which then causes the other variances. If that wasn't environmentally sensitive, you'd have a 20% building coverage and a 30% lot impervious coverage, which are well under the minimum. We would basically have no problem with it. He grants the permits. So that's what you're voting on: construction within a floodplain, and that's our ordinance. And then, of course, the coverages, which sort of go hand in hand, and all would have to be subject to getting DEP, either the letter indicating that it's by rule for the fence, and the other items individually will need DEP permits. Right,
Okay,
Bill?
I'm gonna offer that. And I need a second.
Second.
Malta second. Amy, please call the roll.
Mr. Fuller, Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Manal,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner,
Yes.
Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Maloney. Please get your permits from the DEP.
Will do.
Thank you, will do.
Thank you all so much.
That brings us to our final case, Alan Barsano, Block 440.01, Lot 11, 14 Dwight Drive, Ocean, Zone R3. This is an application to construct a 22 by 15 paver patio with a 14-inch kneel wall, 2 foot high. The property and the dwelling are pre-existing non-conforming for size, lot depth, and front yard setback. Mr. Barsano, are you here? Mr. Barsano, you are here. Hey, Mr. Higgins, do you have a report?
I am here.
Yes, I do. I'll read it because it's very, very short. The applicant proposes to construct a 9-inch high deck in the front yard of an existing residence. The site is located in the R3 residential zone, which requires a 45-foot front yard setback. The existing setback of the house varies. The western portion of the house is approximately 30 feet wide and is setback 25.2 feet. The center portion of the house, which is approximately 22 feet wide, is set back approximately 40 feet. So that's set back farther than the western portion of the house. And the eastern portion of the house, which is approximately 24 feet wide, is set back approximately 36 feet. So that's also set back less than the center portion of the house. The applicant proposes to extend the proposed deck in an easterly direction along the existing 25.2-foot setback that's the western portion of the house, for a distance of 22 feet to create a 15-foot by 22-foot raised patio in front of the center portion of the house, basically filling in a gap in the front of the house. The patio will not extend beyond the existing front yard setback of the western portion of the residence. Most of the residences along Dwight Drive have setbacks similar to the existing residence, and I see no significant detriment to the granting of the variance. It's probable that the creation of a patio as proposed will improve the functionality of the house. The zoning officer has noted that the sketch provided by the applicant dimensions an 18-foot wide patio, but that the space occupied by the patio measures 22 feet wide. To avoid confusion, I recommend that any resolution of approval be conditioned upon the patio extending the entire length of the center portion of the residence that is set back 40 feet.
Thank you, Mr. Higgins.
Want to
Mr.
put a patio in
Fitzgerald.
front of the house and fill in a notch in the front of the house.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Fitzgerald.
I have no problem at all with this, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr.
Yeah,
Borsano,
I didn't, okay.
do you have your report? Bill?
Me? Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. I said I have no problem at all with it.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Mr. Borsano, please raise your right hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes,
Please state your name and address.
I affirm.
Okay. Please state your name and address.
Alan Barsano, 14 Dwight Drive, Ocean Township.
Okay. Mr. Borsano, can you tell us in your own words what you're doing?
Yes, exactly to what Mr. Higgins mentioned earlier. We're looking to do a 15 by 22 foot patio, which will align with the western portion of the home with that 25-foot setback, and it would even out and square off with the western side of the home. It'll be approximately 9 inches tall, just to match up with the existing step that comes up to the home. So it'll be approximately 9 inches tall with a small knee wall in the front for a little privacy.
Okay. And the reason for the patio in the front of the house?
My family. Yeah, the house needs it. It would improve the functionality of the house, and it'll make the neighborhood a little bit nicer. And for my kids, of course.
Safety also, so they won't be in,
Street. Oh, that's paramount to everything.
Good.
That's why we want to put that small knee wall just to enclose the area.
Okay.
Do you back onto the golf course? Or you across the street?
No,
No.
across the street.
Right, and you have a very small backyard, don't you?
Relatively small, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Anyone from the board have any questions? Anyone from the public have any questions for Mr. Barsano? Motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion, we close the public hearing.
Second.
That was Mr. Malta second. Amy, please call the roll.
Yes.
Mr. Malta?
Yes.
Mr. Manel?
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner? Mr. Worrell?
Yes.
Mrs. Beal?
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd,
Yes. Someone offer this? Anybody?
I'll
Mr. Ward?
offer Walter.
I need a second.
Second, Worrell.
Amy, please call the roll.
Yes.
Mr. Malta,
Yes.
Mr. Manel,
Yes.
Mr. Van Wagner, Mr. Worrell,
Yes.
Mrs. Beal,
Yes.
Mr. Mamie,
Yes.
Chairman Shepherd.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Barsano. I need a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make a motion, we adjourn the meeting.
I'd
Second.
like to thank everyone for their participation tonight. See you next month.
Thank you
Good night, everyone.
very much. Have a good
Good night.
evening.
Stay well, everyone.
Stay well.
Night.
Thank you. Have a good night. Be safe.
Night.